Welcome to This Explainer. Look, if you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by all the conflicting advice out there about managing carbs and diabetes, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're diving straight into the evidence-based guidelines to decode carbohydrate and sweetener management once and for all, and see what the data actually says.
Let's just address the elephant in the room right off the bat, okay? When you hear the word diabetes, it's incredibly common to feel this immediate sense of fear or anxiety around sweets. There's this super pervasive all-or-nothing mindset that basically tells us we have to cut out all the joy and live in a constant state of dietary deprivation. But do you really have to completely give up sugar to manage diabetes? Well, the science actually points to a massive, reassuring no. So here is exactly how we'll unpack the research today. First, rethinking carbohydrates. Second, sugars, not the enemy. Third, sugar alcohols and sweeteners. Fourth, the fiber advantage. And finally, doing the carb math. All right, jumping into section 1, rethinking carbohydrates. Our main focus here is on the total amount.
Okay, let's kick things off by totally busting a classic myth. You've probably heard people talk about simple versus complex carbs, right? Well, those categories are basically obsolete now in the scientific community. Why? Because they completely fail to determine the actual impact a carbohydrate will have on your blood glucose levels. The evidence tells us that while the source of your food absolutely matters, the total amount of carbohydrates you consume is usually way more important for managing your post-meal blood sugar.
And this is fascinating because despite the massive trend pushing extreme low-carb diets right now, Diabetes Canada actually recommends that 45 to 60% of your daily energy should come from carbohydrates. Ideally, from low glycemic index and high-fiber foods. It turns out that severely restricting your carbs isn't universally superior for weight loss, glycemic control, or even sticking to a diet long-term. In fact, cutting your carbs too low can actually be risky. Your brain is a really hungry organ. The recommended dietary allowance is a minimum of 130 grams of digestible carbohydrates every single day just to keep an adult brain fueled up. Going on a very low-carb diet, which means less than 40% of your energy coming from carbs, can trigger ketogenic effects, and that increases the risk of a really dangerous condition called diabetic ketoacidosis, especially for folks using insulin or SGLT2 inhibitors. Plus, if you drop below 100 grams a day, you risk muscle wasting and missing out on vital vitamins, minerals, and fiber.
Moving right along to section 2, sugars, not the enemy. Context and limits definitely matter here.
We used to be told to just avoid sugar like the plague, but the science actually shows that natural sugars, particularly from fruits, vegetables, and dairy products, are an absolutely acceptable part of a healthy eating plan. Take sucrose, that's just your standard table sugar. Adding up to 10% of your total daily energy requirements from sucrose is totally fine. There's literally no evidence that this level harms your glycemic control or lipids. Same goes for fructose. Up to 10% isn't likely to harm your body weight or blood pressure. But, and this is a big but, there is a major caution regarding sugar-sweetened beverages. Drinking excess calories through sodas and sweetened drinks is strongly linked to higher risks of hypertension and coronary heart disease. So it's those liquid, empty calories you really have to watch out for, not the naturally occurring sugars in, say, an apple.
Which brings us to section 3, sugar alcohols and sweeteners. Let's talk about the safe alternatives.
So, when you put sugar alcohols head-to-head with regular carbs, the differences are pretty wild. Sugar alcohols produce a significantly lower post-meal blood glucose response, and they only give you about 2 kilocalories per gram compared to 4 kilocalories per gram for regular carbs. They just convert so slowly and minimally in your body. Now, there is a bit of a catch you should be aware of. Consuming more than 10 grams of sugar alcohols a day might give you a bit of a laxative effect. So, enjoy them, but definitely don't overdo it in a single sitting.
Beyond sugar alcohols, we also have non-nutritive sweeteners like aspartame, sucralose, and stevia. To measure exactly how safe these are, Health Canada uses something called the Acceptable Daily Intake, or ADI. This is simply the amount of a sweetener that can be safely consumed on a daily basis over a person's entire lifetime without any adverse effects whatsoever.
15. That is a massive number when we actually look at these safety limits. Let's put that into perspective. For an average 75-kilogram man, his daily acceptable intake of aspartame is 3,000 milligrams. Your typical diet iced tea has about 200 milligrams. That means he would literally need to drink 15 cans of diet iced tea every single day of his life just to hit that safety limit. It perfectly illustrates that the amounts of sweeteners we typically consume are incredibly safe.
All right, section 4, the fiber advantage. Basically, the carbohydrate that doesn't even count.
Fiber is kind of the unsung hero of this whole nutritional story. Even though it is technically classified as a carbohydrate, only a negligible amount of it is ever converted to glucose during normal digestion. Because it isn't digested, it just doesn't provide the body with energy or glucose. It pretty much passes right through you, offering some incredible health benefits without spiking your blood sugar at all.
Now, there are two specific types doing the heavy lifting for us here. Insoluble fiber, which you'll find in things like wheat bran and seeds, acts kind of like a broom, maintaining bowel regularity and preventing constipation. But soluble fiber, found in oats and legumes, is the real magic trick for diabetes management. It actually forms a gel in your digestive tract that traps cholesterol and physically slows down the absorption of glucose into your small intestine. By slowing down how fast your stomach empties, it actively decreases your post-meal blood glucose levels. How cool is that?
Because fiber is such a game changer, the recommendations actually shift quite a bit. While the general population is advised to eat around 21 to 38 grams daily, Diabetes Canada bumps that recommendation way up, advising up to 50 grams daily. That's specifically to actively improve blood lipids, promote fullness for weight management, and really control that post-meal blood glucose.
Finally, let's bring it all together in Section 5, doing the carb math. Let's figure out what actually impacts your blood sugar. Okay, here is the exact mathematical formula you can use every single time you look at a nutrition label. Step 1, look at the total carbohydrates. Step 2, subtract the dietary fiber, because as we just learned, it doesn't digest into glucose. Step 3, subtract all the sugar alcohols, because their conversion to glucose is super minimal. Step 4, the result is your total available carbohydrate. This final number is literally the only number you need to care about when predicting how a specific food is going to impact your bloodstream.
And if you're sitting there thinking, is it really that simple? Well, here is direct validation right from the scientific guidelines themselves. When calculating the carbohydrate content, it is appropriate to subtract all of the sugar alcohol content and fiber from the total carbohydrate. Educated calculation beats restrictive fear every single time. You don't have to guess, you just have to do the math.
So we've busted those old low-carb myths, we've embraced natural sugars, validated sweeteners, celebrated fiber, and learned the ultimate carbohydrate equation. Now that you're armed with this powerful, evidence-based nutritional toolbox, I want to leave you with a challenge. What calculated carb choice will you make today? Instead of fearing your next meal, how will you use this new math to empower it? Think about it, run the numbers, and actually enjoy your food. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.